took 37 years for electricity to get to half of the US. ChatGPT took 10 months. So we've never seen anything at this scale and at this speed. It's something to be fearful because it's quite fast and quite big. And what happens as humans when something very fast is coming at us, very big? We fight, flight, or freeze.
AI is changing the world. These platforms are being updated all the time. I'm a huge fan of exploring technologies because it gets you further faster. You can be pretty clever with it, but you've got to instruct it in the right way. That's where the education needs to happen.
You show the good, the bad, and the ugly, but you show that some of these things we can manage is when people start going from that fear, what it means for them, and what it means for their companies.
I now could not live without it. The speed that gives me is amazing. It's changed the way that we work. It is cutting corners that can be cut. Adoption of these platforms that is really going to drive innovation for businesses.
Machines are going to find a way to go very quickly from the objective that we have, figuring out the prompt, and they will do it. The real challenge of what we can do as leaders is think for the long term, what this implies and how we can liberate resources to do things that matter the most.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Marketing in the Madness. Now, I hope we sound okay because this is the first episode, might actually be all series since we've been doing Marketing in the Madness, that I'm actually doing one virtual. So with me today, I have the fantastic Marco Andre. Now, Marco, I always ask my guests to do this because I usually get it wrong. Can you tell us your job title and what you're doing now?
Sure. I'm Global Head of Marketing and AI Excellence at Novartis.
So, Marco, obviously, you can probably guess what we're going to be talking about. Marketing and AI is going to play a pretty huge part in today's podcast. So, before that, what I always like to do is ask my guests to give us a bit of background. So Marco not only is now leading marketing and AI at Novartis, which is, well, a huge global pharma company, and I'm sure Marco can position it a lot better than I can. But previous to that, he was at Google for 10 years and has really been focusing on everything that's happening with AI and how businesses can use it, and specifically his business, since I guess it kind of went a bit mad when ChatGPT sort of reared its head and, well, became everywhere a couple of years ago. So, Marco, before we delve into marketing, AI, everything that we can do, how we can better use AI, I've got so many questions for you. Can you give me a little bit of the Marco backstory?
Sure. Marco has always been, since he was a kid, a bit of a marketing nerd. I remember when there were still VHS tapes, I would record ads over my parents' tapes, and they would get mad because I would just watch ads and repeat. So that has always been what drove me. In terms of experience, I worked in consumer goods for P&G for a bit, and I worked for 10 years in Google, which is where I spent most of my career. And I worked in different roles, global, regional, local roles in marketing, product, across YouTube and Google. I ended up going to pharma a few years ago, and over the last 2 years, I think it's always a bit of serendipity and a bit by chance, I ended up doing what I'm doing now, which is to do all the training for AI for top executives, with obviously a deep focus on generative AI.
Wow. I mean, and AI is literally everywhere. It's going to change the world. It's going to make it much easier in some ways, but also probably a little bit more challenging in other ways. So I'm excited to, I guess, delve into that in a bit more detail with you today. So I guess because AI is everywhere, I've kind of had a few chats about this. Like now, you know, even as a business at Street, like teaching people how to use it, having policies on how we use it is super important. So I'm going to start with which might seem a bit more boring for the listeners. Sorry, guys, we will get to the fun stuff, I promise. But the importance of how we educate people on AI, the benefits, because also a lot of people are scared, right? They think AI is here to steal their jobs, and it probably will steal some jobs. But someone said something to me once, which has really stuck with me, is we are, basically adopt AI or it will adopt you. Like, this is the time. We've got to put the effort in to learn how to use it, how to get the best out of it. Like I know probably some parents won't like the sound of this, but I'm actually showing my daughter, like, this is how it can help you. Don't use it to give you the idea, but use it to refine your ideas or help do your research. Or so talk to me about, I guess, at that starting point when you're talking to leaders, to businesses, this thing has arrived, it's here, and it seems to have arrived quite quickly. How you're educating, within your business, and how you're advising others on how to adopt and set up policies for AI.
First, let's be clear. It's something to be fearful because it's quite fast and quite big. Let me give you a stat. It took 37 years for electricity to get to half of the US, 21 years for the smartphone. ChatGPT took 10 months. So we've never seen anything at this scale and at this speed. And what happens as humans when something very fast is coming at us, very big? We fight, flight, or freeze. So it's very normal. I think the way to combat it is, as you rightfully said, is education. And education is not this fancy way of, okay, what shall we do? Education is exactly that, as you were telling me, as you're doing with your daughter, is finding examples in which we can use this to liberate time from our day-to-day. I'll give you a very concrete example. The other day, I had my online course. I got all the feedback from the course, and I wanted to create a few quotes, structure it. It would take me a couple of hours. So I downloaded, put it in one AI tool, put it in another AI tool to create an image, and I did it in 3.5 minutes. I timed it. So all of the time and energy I would have spent on that, I could spend on other things. Now, I think that's where we should start. I think policies and everything is important, but what a lot of policies have in general, in different industries, the policies are, you can try AI, but there's 37 things here that will get you fired. No one is going to try it if that's the case. So I think they need to go hand in hand. Yes, we need to have the regulations, the policies, so that there's a responsible use of AI if there is within a technology. But then, as you said, the education, finding the examples that you use AI to liberate either your time or your brain power or your creativity in ways you have never been able to do before. So I think there's a balance, and both things need to go hand in hand.
Yeah, for me, you're so right. It's speed. The speed that I can get things done at. It's not necessarily, and also sometimes improving the content or getting it to check something. I'm using it mostly to help refine content, not create content, but refine content. And the speed that gives me is amazing. And I'll say, have I missed any points? Like, here are the points that I've made. This is my tone of voice. Like, you can be pretty clever with it, but you've got to instruct it in the right way. And I think that's where the education needs to happen, is how, across the business, like, this is how, and I'll probably run a workshop in our next strategy day. Like, this is how I'm using AI and how I think as a business we should use AI, not to come up with the idea, but to help refine it and help speed up the process. So, Marco, seeing as you're kind of leading the charge for this, it's such a huge business, I can't not ask you. I'm going to ask all the mean questions. I won't be too mean. But what does AI excellence mean at Novartis? How are you guys using it to help you get ahead as a business when it comes to your marketing?
So when I think about AI excellence, is how exactly we use AI and what is the implication that it has for our business and the value chain of our business. So if you think about marketing, for instance, nowadays you or I can create a video in a few minutes, really. But the point is not only that we can create a video, is how does that then reflect in how we go to market? Another example, a lot of the effort we do in marketing is related with SEO. If a lot of searches now, or people are asking things to LLMs, rather to large language models rather than to search, how are we going to influence that conversation as marketers? It's not even influencing, sometimes it's how are we going to make sure that when someone researches our product, the right information is going to be there. So it's figuring out how all of these things are changing and how they're reflecting for a business that is probably changing at a pace that has not been like that since the age of the internet. And I think for marketing, as I said, I'm a marketing nerd. I think that's incredible. It's incredible that nowadays I can create a video of you in 30 seconds and put you speaking in perfect Romanian tomorrow. And that is incredible for scalability, right? So I think it's figuring out and teaching people what does that mean for how they're going to run their business, and then have them apply it before this future, which is now is a bit half future, half present, but becomes fully the present.
How do you do that though, Marco? Sorry, I'm getting really real. Like, I guess you have to section it up into the departments. Like from a marketing perspective, do you just literally look at things and go, okay, cool, we do this at the moment manually, we could do this, we do this, or do you kind of run a workshop to go, how could AI help us? Like, because often until you know the technologies that are available, and there are so many, and you trial it, and a lot of it for me is, word of mouth. Someone tells me about a certain technology, I'm like, oh, that sounds cool, that's going to help me save some time usually. I'm going to go and check it out. But how do you evaluate the right tools or the best places to use the tools?
I use the expression get a room, because it's not about watching videos or reading. You need to get everyone in a room. Doesn't matter if it's in person, if it's online, and you need to take them to a journey, which it doesn't take a lot of hours. It's first show them examples. Don't talk about AI at conceptual level. Show them examples. As we just discussed, the fact that you can create a video now. I was talking with someone the other day. They had an excellent idea. They said there's going to be a great rebaselining of expectations. Because if a video copy before would cost, let's say, 50K and take 3 months, that is gone. That shouldn't, it's not, the expectation is completely reset. So I think that's the first thing. And then the second thing, what I see the biggest change is you need to get them to use the technology. You get laptops in front of them, you show them a few prompts, or I'd like to think more than prompts, questions, is asking questions. And they start seeing the power and they start realizing, wait, if now I can create a job description, which is the most boring thing on earth, yeah? And I can create it in just a few minutes and then tweak it, as you said, gives you a head start, and then you tweak it. What does that mean for how I do other things? And then you mentioned governance and policies. You need to tell them about the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm doing a few keynotes in the next few weeks. So I have a keynote called The 7 Cardinal Sins of AI, which is exactly talking about bias and hallucination and privacy and all those things that you need to introduce, but you also need to manage it. I give this example. Be careful, this is going to be a blast from the past. Do you remember the millennium bug, 1st of January 2000? I got a piece of footage which said the news coverage that the stock market was going to crash, food supplies would dwindle, all of that. And at the time, it felt quite scary, but we actually managed it, didn't only fear it. And I think now is the same. If you show the good, the bad, and the ugly, but you show that some of these things we can manage, is when people start going from that fear, as you said, to a bit of acceptance of what it is. And then they start thinking for themselves what it means for them and what it means for their companies.
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing. I now could not live without it because it's changed the way that we work. Like, even like you're saying, like one of our new starters, we obviously have a podcast, but we also deliver a lot of video content for our clients, and a huge step change in AI in the last year or two has been, everything that we can now do, like pick the right clips. We can tell it to listen out for certain words or certain things that we want to, pick out. And, platforms like Opus Clip will choose the clips for us, and then it will transcribe them for us. And, yes, we might need to tweak things slightly, but the amount of manual time that it would have taken to listen to an hour-long recording and then pick up the best clips, which we were doing manually. Like, I've had a podcast, this one for a year, but I've been podcasting for nearly 5 years now. Like, it was so manual before, and the amount of time it saves, the amount more we can deliver in terms of clips. Like, AI is changing the world, and it's changing things really fast. I think I'm a bit like you, Marco, maybe not as much of a thumbs up. Yeah, there we go. So Riverside has even got it baked in. But I'm a huge fan of exploring technologies because it gets you further faster. Like, I guess you kind of call it cheating. Like, it is cutting corners that can be cut. Like, I am a huge fan of that. And I think a lot of people are like, I don't want to do that because it's not authentic or it's not real. If you don't do it and everyone else is, you are not going to have the competitive advantage that they have.
I think the cheating part is important, because if I would tell you today that I used PowerPoint to do a presentation, you would not call it cheating, right? You
No.
would say I was stupid if I didn't use it. I think it's the same with AI. At a certain point, AI would not even going to say, I did this with AI. It's just how you do things.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of stigma. We need to understand that there is. For me, is exactly that. I want to put all of my effort and all of my time on creating. Repurposing, as you said, with Opus Clip, I mean, that's brute force. Anyone can do that. I want to put the concept on the story, on the research, on what I'm doing, rather than doing something that honestly anyone could do. So I think there's an effort also to move. I was talking with someone the other day. I'll give you an example. That person is a professor, and they are working in a primary school, and they were using AI to do the first draft of the report cards. And they said, I'm not going to tell anyone because people will think that I'm cheating. I said, why? Because now I take 1.5 days because I get a first draft, I get all the notes about the kids, and I get a first draft much faster. And then I actually spend my time, instead of typing it, I spend my time tweaking it and thinking about the person. So she saves time, and probably the kids and the parents receive a much better report card. So it works for both sides.
Yeah, 100%. You're right. It's about being smart, like using it in a smart way and being smart. That is really the kind of highlight of all of this, is use it in the right way. And, you can, hopefully, if you've got half a brain, you can kind of work that out. Marco, so obviously using this predominantly, like myself, for marketing. I've talked about a couple of cases where I've used AI. What is the coolest or the best or the most time-saving thing that you guys are doing at Novartis at the moment using AI?
I'll focus specifically on marketing. And it's interesting because these things go at a pace, which is absolutely incredible. I think one of the things is very internal focused is that we are all have to become super marketers, super salespeople, because we are going to have customers and patients, and consumers, they're going to have such access to information that we all need to up our game. So a lot of the effort that we have to make with AI is an example. Sales FAQs. You're getting the same questions, probably with 80% of the same answers, replied to 1,000 times by different people. How do you get everything to coming from the same source? So that's one. The other one, which we still haven't completely understood the implications, is as soon as these technologies start coming out, how do you start applying them? So one, for instance, is Notebook LM from Google, which is launched a few weeks ago. And I don't know if you tried it yet, Katie, but basically what it does, and it's literally magic, is it's a free tool from Google called Notebook LM. You can go there, you can put a document, you can put a transcript, you can put a LinkedIn post that you wrote, and it will create automatically a podcast with two people talking between them. Yeah. So this is not the gimmick only of creating a podcast. The gimmick is pretty incredible, so you have to try it. But the other thing is this changes how you learn, because now you can get a document with 30 things, and then it will create a podcast. So if you're running, you listen to it and learn in a completely different way. And I think our role as marketers right now, it's no more than a guess, is realizing, okay, if this is happening, where is the world going? And how do we as marketers set ourselves to live in a world in which people are going to start consuming audio content and most probably talking with AI through voice, which is also a big change that is happening. So I think we're all guessing, but right now that's the thing we should all be doing.
Yeah, and it is, like you say, it's going to investigate these platforms, going to, give them a try, have a demo. I feel like, for me as a small business, obviously no the size of your business, but, definitely having a kind of challenge for all the team, like go and investigate a new AI tool or something that's going to help you do your job every month and present back some ideas. Because I think it's that constant, finger on the pulse, learning and, adoption of these platforms that is really going to drive innovation for businesses and enable, some to get further faster. So my next question, I've got so much I want to ask you, Marco. Honestly, I probably could just speak to you forever. So my next question is really about, how companies can therefore, once they've found these tools, can ensure that the implementation really enhances, the employee experience, especially because, some of them might be a little bit scared or wary. So how do you, get that employee advocacy?
I like to think about it. How I recommend people to go about it is like the 4 seasons. I know we have global warming, so there's no more 4 seasons, but I like to think about it in a way in which it leverages the best and is sequential. So we start with the spring. Spring is when you get people excited, and it's very important that you get people excited. So some of these examples, I saw how you started smiling, and I just showed you very little examples. So we need to do the same in corporations. We need to educate people, show them the examples, and give them the tools to use them at work. There's no point. Someone I was talking to the other day, they were saying, yeah, I test all of these tools, but then I go into my company and they don't have them. That's normal. It takes some time, but they will have, with time, they will start having all of that. Then you go a bit into summer, like the typical summer love. And that's when you start having use cases, people start realizing some of the things that I told you. Okay, if I'm doing the video here, how could I, from a podcast, create, for instance, a video very quickly? Yeah. And from the podcast that we had today, how can I create insights that then I can produce a blog post almost instantaneously? So that's summer. Then comes fall. Fall is when you know that the summer is just a summer love, or you're going to go ahead and get married. That is when you measure impact. And measuring impact in these things is no different than other things as change management. But I think the difficult part is also measuring the leading indicators, such things such as adoption, for instance. It's very difficult to determine ROI immediately in a new technology. I tell this story. Did you buy anything from Amazon in 2008? Did you buy anything from Amazon last week? Right? So there's a lot of things to figure out and to build until you get that ROI. And then the last one is winter, is exactly what you mentioned. You need to have the governance, the policies. And I know some companies and some industries are more conservative than others. So it doesn't matter. You can decide just to start with winter. But the important thing is that you do tackle these 4 things at the same time to be able to drive it within organizations. And I would argue it's not only for corporates. This functions for a small business, for medium-sized, private, public companies, because those are the things that I'm seeing that the companies are doing it well. And that's what they're doing.
Love that. Yeah, you've got to, well, I think start if you haven't. I mean, I can't believe any business at this point, especially when it comes to marketing, hasn't started on this journey already. If they haven't, then hopefully today, and they're listening, might inspire them to. But yeah, it's changing how we do everything. I'm super excited to, I've already gone onto it to go and check out Notebook LM, but maybe we'll create something that we can add on or release as an extra podcast episode.
Absolutely. I would encourage you to do it because it's like magic. It really feels like magic.
Yeah, it looks really, the interface is quite similar to ChatGPT as well. So yeah, guys, we'll share the links to all of that in the show notes, and potentially maybe add something onto this episode that kind of shows a fake version of the podcast with the brief. Yeah. Maybe we add the brief to Notebook LM and see if it does a better podcast than you and me have done, Marco.
Absolutely. That'd be interesting. You can get the transcript and have them talk about the transcript for a few minutes. That would be cool.
I know. Maybe we'll do that. That's what we're going to do. Oh my God, we can release 2 podcasts. We'll do one, our real one, which is this one, guys, I promise. And then we're going to do another one off the back of not the transcript, but like the brief, and see if it comes up with, if
it's like a Russian doll situation.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I love that.
Podcast of the podcast of the
podcast. A podcast of the podcast of the podcast. So yeah, I think that would be super interesting. And yeah, watch this space, guys. We'll make it happen some way. So the other thing that I was going to kind of does tie into this a little bit is there's usually a tendency for companies to, really focusing on how AI can cut costs rather than expand capabilities. Like, is this a trend that you see quite a bit? And I don't know, where do you think we're going to get to with all of this?
So what I always say, some people ask me, does this mean I can fire everyone? And what the question I always ask is, well, you can, but what will your competitor do? They're probably going to find a way that with the same people, they're going to free up resources and time and brain power to be way more customer centric and to create better stories and to create better products. So it's always a chance. Cutting is easy. The top line is always the most difficult to create. So for me is, you might get efficiencies, but the efficiencies are not only in cutting people and cutting time, is liberating that time for creativity, liberating that brain power that you can use. And if by nature, humans, when they're more creative, they create better products, people buy more and prosperity ensues. So I think, yes, let's be clear. There's a lot of jobs that are going to be lost. I mean, I always tell this story. You're in London. When cars started to replace horses and horse carriages in London, there was a group of people that came out and protested because they were afraid of losing their jobs. Those people were the people that were in charge of removing the horses' business from the streets. And of course, those people lost their jobs, of course. So they transformed that to go pump gas and become mechanics. So jobs will be lost, but I'm not so worried about it. What I'm worried is that we're not educating people and creating new jobs and reskilling people for new jobs that are just going to exist. I'll give you an example. I think marketing in 1 year, maybe 6 months, you're going to start having someone in marketing, which their role is head of marketing agents, for instance. And you're going to start having those things. And that's what we need to start educating people for. Because cutting is very easy and very short term. The real challenge and what we can do as leaders is think for the long term, what this implies and how we can liberate resources to do things that matter the most.
Love that. Yeah, Marco, you just have the best want and analogies to bring this to life as well. Honestly, so many great clips for our social content in here. So I'm surprising you with this question, because I always like to ask the questions that I know I'd want to know. And I don't know if I'm being mean saying 10, but I think between us we could get there. Do you think we could list out between you and I our favorite 10? You could probably do 10 of your own, but if you haven't got 10, but specifically that help with marketing, top 10 AI tools that people should go and investigate.
Sure, absolutely. We can do it together.
Yeah, let's go. Well, Marco, you go. I'm going to let you go, and maybe we'll do one each. Why don't we do one each? I don't know if I've got 5. I probably have. But
we're going to find
you can make up the rest if not. Right. So, Marco, you go first. Number 1.
So, Canva. Incredible tool, developing every week. I was talking with someone yesterday. You can just get from a slide in PowerPoint, you go to something called Magic Switch. You press a button and you create a sales pitch, or you create a blog post.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I have a Canva subscription. I probably haven't looked at it as much as I should do, but these platforms are being updated all the time, guys. Honestly, you've got to just keep your eyes on them. What you think it was doing 6 months ago, it's going to be totally different now, totally different. Okay, so I'm going to add one in, which helps with developing written content. And I've actually used it for one of your use cases earlier, Marco, which was writing job ads, but even helping refine our values, teaching it our tone of voice, because it's like ChatGPT, but you can teach it your tone of voice better, more easily, and set up different tones of voice. And it's called Jasper. And I love it. It's been a real game changer in terms of when we've got different client content. I mean, look, it's not perfect, but it gets us a huge amount of the way there. So you can teach it your tone of voice, and then you can choose which tone of voice you want to write a piece of content in. So for me, that could be from me or for one of our clients or for my business, Street Agency. And it will go and write that content in the right tonality, and actually in an SEO friendly way if you need it to. So it just takes a lot of the legwork out, which means I can write something, put it in, and then say, turn it into this tone of voice, or section it up, or improve the SEO, or whatever it might be. So that for me is a good one.
Okay. The next one for me is napkin.ai. It's literally, you can just copy and paste what you want, select the text, and it will generate automatically a representation and a graph, an infographic out of it. It's the one I mentioned to you earlier. It's like magic. You can just choose the colors you have a certain menu of infographics you can use, and it's literally that simple. You copy and paste the text, and you can immediately generate an image or a diagram.
Love that. Well, I have a similar one, and I'm sure you might have one that does this as well. Although I've stopped using it recently, I need to delve back in, which is beautiful.ai. So number 4, beautiful AI. Have you heard of it, Marco?
I heard of it. I thought it was for presentations.
But... It is. But for me, in B2B marketing, sometimes presentations, PDFs, documents that, are slide shares on LinkedIn or something like that, it enables us to make them really, really quickly. But it also will do your research. If you want to profile someone, you can ask it to pull in an image of that person from LinkedIn or, from the internet, wherever. So that kind of stuff for me, again, it just makes things so much more simple. It's, the theme is set up. You can literally tell it what to put in your slides, and it writes the content, pulls in the images. Like the amount of copying, pasting, moving, designing things that we used to have to do, you don't have to now. So number 5, back to you.
So CapCut. So CapCut is a video editing tool, which is absolutely incredible. Believe me, I have never, ever in my life was able to edit video. And with this, it's that simple. You can have a functionality like Opus Clip. You can slice something in shorts. You can just add subtitles at a touch of a button. It's just so easy to use. And it's what I use for doing my own LinkedIn and YouTube shorts and TikToks. It's incredibly easy to use, and I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, it's just starting to play with these things, isn't it? Like CapCut, I have started to play with. I just haven't got into it enough. I could just do with retiring from my job for a month and playing with all these technologies. That would literally make me so happy, by the way. I would absolutely love that. Well, you kind of referenced it there. So I'm going to say my next one, because we create so much video content at Street, has to be Opus Clip. There's a couple, though. So number 6 would be Opus Clip and or Descript. There are various others. They're always being updated. Opus is the one that we've, been playing around with the most recently and exploring, but enables us to create from this one podcast. We can chuck it into Opus, we can tell it the kind of things that we want it to pull out, and it will then pull loads of clips, and it saves an immense amount of time, and of course transcribe them and bring them to life. So it's a game changer. I don't think CapCut does the clip picking yet, does it? You have to give CapCut
it has
the
a
clips.
tool that does that now, similar to Opus Clip.
Okay,
I still
cool.
use the script to do the recordings. It's the best tool to do the initial recording when I'm doing to do the video capture. It's an incredible tool.
So I'm sorry, I'm going slightly off our numbers here, but so Marco, explain that to me. So you record in Descript.
I record in Descript,
and then you take that content out and you put that into CapCut to create your clips.
That's correct. So I do it initial editing on Descript because it's very the feature that I have to editing by removing words and fillers, and it's just incredible. And then on CapCut, I do it. The other thing that CapCut does well, you can post directly to YouTube Shorts or to TikTok because it's a platform from ByteDance, so it works quite well. Yeah.
Fab. Love it. So over to you, I think, number 7.
Number 7. I'm going to go for ideogram.ai. A lot of people really love Midjourney, and it's one of the most incredible tools. And Pika is also quite nice. But what I like about Midjourney, it's very easy. It's web-based. Midjourney is now web-based also. But it has something, a lot of what I do for fun is create images that have titles, for instance, or illustrations that have titles. And Ideogram works really well for that. So it's still my go-to for image creation. Yeah. For Pika, since we're mentioning Pika as developed, you can try it. There's this effect that you can do now. I can take a picture of you, and it can either cakeify you, turn you into a cake, or smush you or inflate you in a balloon, which is quite fun. And you can see where these things. So you should try it after the podcast.
I love that. Oh my gosh. We're going to put all of these links, guys, by the way, into the show notes. So you can go check them all out. Next one for me. Now, this isn't necessarily just a marketing tool. It's a lot more than that, but it's a platform called Otter AI. So Otter will come on all my calls with me automatically, whether I'm on a Google Meet or a Teams or a Zoom or whatever, Slack. I can turn it on and it can record anything in the background. We often will use it at events when we're hosting. We do a lot of kind of like B2B style lead generation events where we're, sharing thought leadership. So, or, something like today, we could run this through, we can get Otter to listen to the whole recording and then do all sorts of different things in a practical day-to-day situation. It's ask it to write a follow-up email with the topics and the actions that we need to go back to a client with. Or from a marketing perspective, it might be like pull the transcript and set out an article that covers off the key points that were discussed. But it just enables us to, again, it's one of those platforms so easy and so brilliant. I mean, we have tried Copilot, which I know is supposed to tie it all together, which is a whole other thing. But obviously it only stays within the Microsoft world. So therefore it doesn't help me as much because I have calls on lots of other platforms. So yeah, I would definitely say otter.ai, worth checking out. It's brilliant.
So for number 9 is because of writing. I definitely recommend Claude. So it's very different than ChatGPT. For me, what works really well, it does 2 things really well. The first one is it really understands my style of writing if I feed it. And within the same thread, every time I have, for instance, create a newsletter, because newsletters have kind of the same structure, so it recognizes it pretty well. So the amount of editing I need to do is very little compared, for instance, with ChatGPT. And the other thing that is quite good is a lot of marketing is digested information. So if you can just put a PDF or a case study there, it can actually create a dashboard or derive some insights from the data in a way that I haven't seen other frontier large language model doing. So give it a try. If you don't use it, I definitely recommend going for the paid version because you really see the difference in writing content.
Love that. Oh, amazing. Yeah, Claude, and it sounds kind of similar to Jasper in some way. So I want to go check that one out. And then last but not least, now I don't feel that we can't make number 10 ChatGPT because, I mean, it is the one that I probably use the most. And I'm sure the one that most people most know of and, have tried to use. So we know what it does. What I was going to ask you, Marco, is any tips you've got for people to get more, like how to use ChatGPT, because that I think, would be very practical and helpful for everyone listening.
Sure. So the first thing is we did a disservice to ourselves calling this very complicated thing prompt engineering. It's not prompt engineering, it's asking questions. That's it. It's figuring out the question we want to ask, the problem we're trying to solve, and write it. Machines are going to find a way to go very quickly from the objective that we have, figuring out the prompt, and they will do it. In fact, it was launched just last week on ChatGPT, something called Canvas, in which you already start interacting in a very different way and prompting starts to disappear. I think the second thing is, at a certain point, people ask me, but what shall I ask and which tool for what? I think it's very difficult to max out a tool. Just go there, ask the questions and think, can I do this with AI first before doing it myself? That I think is the AI muscle. I was doing something the other day. I'll give you an example. I wanted to buy a bag, a Samsonite. And I had the Samsonite number 1 and the Samsonite number 2 on my screen. And I was starting to compare them. Then I thought, okay, I'm going to take ages to do this. So I just went to ChatGPT just for fun. Can you compare the Area Excel with the C-Lite Excel of Samsonite? And create a table comparing both of them. It just started doing it. And I couldn't believe it. So I think it's more figuring out how can we save the time and what you can use it for, rather than the prompt, a very detailed prompt, everything. Is asking the questions, which is difficult, Katie, because we were educated having the right answers. That's how we were brought up, is memorizing answers. And right now, I think we're going to live in a time, it's about the questions that we ask, and I think that's what matters.
And do you know what, even smarter that I did the other day is I asked ChatGPT what it needed to know from me in order to get my tone of voice better. So I went into chat and I said, what do you, ChatGPT, I want you to learn my tone of voice so that you can help me write better LinkedIn content and posts. And it came back to me with exactly what it needed. And then I replied to it and gave it all the things that I needed. And then it got it, just little things, like it all Americanized everything. So telling it, I'm British and need you to write in British English. Like, you've just got to, like you say, you've got to ask the questions, and you've got to be really, really, really detailed about your brief. So if if I write something, I'll write it into ChatGPT. I'll put it in the one which I've learned. It's learnt my tone of voice. I'll say, I want you to make all my hashtags lowercase writing, because that's how I like to write. And I know that if I see people with capital letters at the beginning of every word as a hashtag, that's probably ChatGPT. I've tilted my tone of voice. So I'm never going to ChatGPT going, write me a post about this. I'm actually giving it the content. This is what I want to say. Can you build upon this? Is there anything I've missed? Like, it's just about instructing it correctly and asking questions and giving the right prompts. Like, that's what we've all got to get better at.
Can I give you a suggestion? I would like to credit the person. This is not, someone wrote a post on LinkedIn the other day that blew my mind away. And I would like you to try that. Go into ChatGPT and just ask this. First prompt, tell me everything that you know about me. Don't put your name. Tell me everything that you know about me. And then after, put a prompt and say, tell me some things that I'm not aware about myself. Okay? And it will blow your mind, because it's only based on the interaction that you had with it, what it knows, not from sources, but from everything that you had in terms of dialogue. And it's mind-blowing. Give it a try.
Wow, I love that. Oh my gosh. Marco, thank you so much. Honestly, like, this has been a very uplifting part of my Tuesday afternoon. You've given me even more platforms to go and look at. My team are going to hate me because I'm always going, oh, we should try this and let's try this. So now, hopefully, you guys listening, as well as me, are going to have a very busy October checking out all these platforms. Marco, thank you so, so much for joining me on today's podcast. I'm really excited to be connected and, to continue to watch and learn from you. Guys, if you want to connect with Marco, again, I will put his LinkedIn profile in the show notes, so please do go and check him out on there. But a big thank you for coming on today, Marco.
Thank you so much for having me, Katie. It was a pleasure.